The appointment of Chief of the General Staff Gerasimov as a commander of the joint group of Russian forces in Ukraine is a revenge of the classic generals, Mikhailo Podolyak, advisor to the head of the Office of the President of Ukraine, said on the air of the all-Ukrainian telephone. According to him, the generals are pushing Prigozhin and the Federal Security Service out of the leadership of the so-called special military operation.
All Putin's influence is first of all sacred, the royal sacredness that was inherent in him for some time. They built it for a very long time, that the king is not mistaken. Gerasimov is not just a random character, but the question is whether Gerasimov understands the hot standard war. Now we'll see. Mikhailo Podolyak, advisor to the head of the Office of the President of Ukraine, on the air of the national telephone.
According to experts, the rotation in the defense ministry will not change the situation on the battlefield. It will only simplify a number of organizational issues.
The appointment of Gerasimov to lead this united group will make it much easier to carry out a whole series of military bureaucratic procedures. Surovikin's possibilities in his former position were quite limited for conducting conversations or negotiations, sending requests and demands, and so on.
Surovikin was appointed commander of Russian troops in Ukraine on October 22nd, after the Ukrainian army deoccupied the city of Liman. The appointment of a general who became famous for his cruelty back in Syria caused optimism among critics of the Ministry of Defense. Prigozhin and Kadyrov declared him a real warrior and even a legend. Surovikin's tactics, massive missile attacks on peaceful Ukrainian cities and civilian infrastructure, drone attacks and thousands of mobilized Russians bombarding the positions of the armed forces of Ukraine, did not bring success. There were no big victories. Gerasimov is not a public person. He was sharply criticized by the Russian military for unprofessionalism. He was accused of defeats on the battlefield, for example by the financier of Wagner private military company Prigozhin, since the time of the failure in the Kharkiv direction. Dissatisfied with Gerasimov and propagandists, bloggers and the so-called military correspondents.
Chief of the General Staff, you are a fool and damn hack. We have nothing to fight with.
The rotation of the Russian generals is splitting the military leadership, experts assure. They testify only to the conflicts around Putin.
Gerasimov, a member of the country's top leadership, one of the 30 members of the Russian Security Council and the second person in the armed forces of the Federation to commit such. Prigozhin, and who is Prigozhin? A businessman and leader of a gang of mercenaries, accuses a second person and he didn't get anything for it. This can only be done with the support of the president. Putin retreated in his confrontation with the generals' cabal.
Although the president of the aggressor country demonstratively took the side of the generals by rotation in the leadership, experts do not exclude the possibility that Gerasimov will be kept in office in order to blame the Russian army for all the failures later. Structural problems in the enemy's armed forces are obvious, said the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine.
If all was well with them, personnel changes would not occur with such frequency. The recent personnel change suggests, first of all, that there is a need in their ranks to connect the command and control system and the leadership system of the troops.
Gerasimov's appointment as commander of Russian troops in Ukraine may also mean that the non-systematic but too ambitious Prigozhin failed to prove his effectiveness and win in the Kremlin's black room struggle. However, it is possible that we will see more than once changes in the Ministry of Defense. As Mikhailo Podolyak, advisor to the head of the Office of the President of Ukraine, tweeted, "No matter how many commanders of the united groupings are changed, Ukraine will have to endure until the end." Reported by Roman Smoler, Yulia Bezborodko, UATV News.